Hello, welcome to Tesla Mistakes. I'm your host, Tesla Mistake Buster. Welcome to this week where I will debunk more myths and mistakes for you. And before we start, please go ahead and like and subscribe. This would really help me as a small channel. Thank you. And without further ado, let's go to the myths and mistakes this week. So, full self-driving is one of the things that is greatly talked about. And there are a lot of people saying that FSD won't have a lot of effect on the Tesla stock or the financials. That's the first one. And the second one, we're going to talk about how self-driving cars will or will not be commoditized soon by most automakers and basically essentially be free to everybody because everybody has it. It makes no sense to charge anyone. And the third myth is whether or not Tesla demand is getting softer and softer and will be doomed. So without further ado, let's go to the first one. Would FSD have any effect on the stock price or company financials, given the fact that a lot of people still claims that it would get you into accidents, possibly kill you, and we cannot be hands off, and there's very little adoption from those who has the free trial or who has opted in. Maybe later on they opted out again. So what is it going to be? Is it going to have any effect on the Tesla stock price or the company financials? So first of all, we all know that right now the subscription is about $99 a month. And to buy the whole thing off, it's $8,000, which will come out to about like almost 10 years for you to recoup your investment. So a lot of people would go for the subscription instead. So $99 a month, first of all, is really not a big number. We'll have to agree to that. But the thing is that we have a lot of actually people trying this software, and a lot of people find this to be a true chat GPT moment of Tesla. Remember chat GPT when it came out for OpenAI and for Microsoft? It was a huge deal. Finally, an AI that can basically talk to you about almost anything and give you really useful information and solutions, whatever you ask of it. So this is actually Tesla's ChatGPT moment. Many experts and customers have tried it. It has made leaps and bounds of progress since version 11, and ever since 12.3, it's gotten so good on many of the relatively less complicated situations and states and cities. Basically, zero interventions. No need to touch the steering wheel at all, and it'll get you the destination from door to door. So that is the ChatGPT moment. But the question is that going to affect the financials or the stock price at all? So, from our understanding, reading news on the X.com, basically Twitter, and talking to your Tesla owner friends, we know that a lot of people, whoever can afford it, want to adopt it because it's very useful now. Not only are you able to get your hands free on the highway, which is way safer than human driving by now for FSD in Tesla, but on local roads as well. Basically anywhere in the United States, unless it's like super complicated, it basically doesn't require any intervention. So given the fact that not many people still can dole out that $99 a month, we will take a very conservative 30% take rate. And even with that take rate, the number and the financial is definitely not trivial. As you all know, there are many YouTubers who took many drives with FSD without any interventions, as you can see with the famous Homars catalog. And since there's a very decent take rate and almost everybody, like millions of Tesla cars in the United States is enabled for it, this will definitely affect the stock price, and it will be very evident in Q2 coming in just 2 months. And you will see that there's obvious uptake in revenue for FSD, and most of that is not just revenue, it's basically pure profit at this point, because all of the cost of developing this software has already been spent, even though we're still spending money on it, but most of that has already been spent. So we can argue almost all of that revenue is profit, basically. So it will definitely affect the financials, the earnings per share. And another reason why this will definitely affect the financial is that Tesla, even though some argue that the FSD still requires intervention in complicated cities like New York City downtown or Boston downtown, or a lot of really complex like city streets, or some corner cases in rural areas, maybe with road closures or construction zones, things like that. Sure, sometimes even the latest version 12.3.6 still has some problems sometimes. The big deal is that Tesla has acquired a lot of NVIDIA chips into their cluster on top of their in-house developed hardware that's called Dojo. So Dojo, according to the sources that we can see on the internet, Dojo accounts for about 10 to 20% of all the compute combined, and with the GPUs that Tesla acquired from NVIDIA, they're only going to exponentially be able to process more and more video data and make the FSD drive better and better. And as you all can see, that since Elon Musk doesn't really lie, he tells us that 12.4 version, above 12.3.6, is way better. It's a huge step up. And he's able to tell us that because obviously he's the CEO. He knows what's going on in his company before it releases to the public. So all we need to wait is for the next step up, and you'll see the huge improvement. So for that reason, FSD is not going to require almost any intervention in anywhere pretty soon. It's kind of a consensus that the community thinks that by end of year will be pretty much hands-free level for almost everywhere. Okay, so that's the first myth busted. Okay, now let's go to the second myth, right? So will self-driving cars be commoditized soon by most automakers and be essentially free, and therefore FSD wouldn't be worth anything for Tesla, right? Basically. So what do we have right now at this point, right? So the famous one, as you know, right? Waymo has their cars, in a couple cities, very limited because it's geo-fenced. They're not able to operate anywhere else without a high definition map, basically mapping out the entire city. Basically, they have to know exactly how the city looks before they go there in order to drive people around autonomously. So that's the only way Waymo can do it right now, and it's not scalable, right? So for that reason, and also their cars are very expensive with a bunch of lidars and very high tech installed. Unlike Tesla, all it requires is like 7 or 8 really low cost cameras. So Waymo is basically not going to be able to commoditize for self-driving. Actually, they won't even be able to solve it, right? As a generalized solution everywhere in the United States. How about GM Cruise, right? As you all know, they have some problems, accidents, and they have backed out quite a bit due to regulatory pressures. Recently, sure, they have gotten back into it, but this setback cannot be understated. And they go through the same thing Waymo does. They are also geo-fenced, means it's not a general solution. So even if they're able to do it for a couple of cities, maybe 5 cities, 10 cities, they're pretty simple. It takes tremendous amount of resource for them to do that. It's just not financially scalable, and there's no way they can cover the entire United States, not even 10% of the area of the United States. Therefore, GM Cruise is not a competitor still. No way to commoditize this. And finally, I hear a lot of people talk about Aurora's truck autonomous driving, right? So that's all great. Aurora truck can drive itself, but only on the highway, man. Sure, like truck delivery from point to point. Using Aurora, maybe you can drive from point to point, no problem, but only via highway. If you go to local, it might not be able to handle it unless it's already you predetermined to go a couple very specific local streets where it can handle. Otherwise, no way. So it's able to handle a very specific scenario that is highway truck deliveries. So for that reason, there's no competition. Even for Mercedes' latest pilot drive sort of level 3 kind of self-driving ability, right? There's a bunch of limited conditions, right? Look at this, right? How many conditions you have to be satisfied in order to use that? As you can see, it also only works on highway. Come on, Tesla has solved highway full self-driving many years ago, at least 2-3 years ago. We haven't had to intervene at all on highway 2-3 years ago since we used Tesla's full self-driving. So all these other competitors are actually very behind, and they don't have the Tesla's training data, right? The millions of vehicles in United States, collecting the shallow video data every time somebody drives somewhere, you know. There's just no way they can catch up. It's a winner-takes-all market. So Tesla will be the only one that solves full self-driving. There's no way this is commoditized. So this myth is busted. Now, finally, we go to our third point. The third myth. So is Tesla's demand already solved, and it's only going to get softer? Less and less people will, fewer and fewer people will want the Tesla cars. So first of all, we kind of covered this in the previous video. The softness partially comes from a lot of cars being in transit. They've been produced, but they're not delivered. So that's one reason. And some people say, oh, competition will ramp up. As you all know, other competitors have already taken a step back from EV. If anything, the competition actually did not ramp up. They're ramping down. So even if, let's say, we take the argument as subjectively as possible and say, sure, Tesla quarter to quarter in Q2 may not increase, and year over year for Q2 may even decrease quite a bit. That's only a temporary setback, because you know why? If you look at this trend over the years, it's trending up, and it doesn't trend up this quickly and all of a sudden just drops off. Okay. Currently, this little dip is a very temporary setback due to the other automakers pulling out and due to economic conditions. So if you just follow this trend, everybody would tell this is trending up and there's nothing to worry about. And finally, Elon himself in the earnings call, he actually say that he expects Q2 numbers to be way better. So because Elon knows the company better than anyone, he never really straight up lies. If he gives you this kind of straight statement, you can just rely on that. And finally, I believe FSD will drive the demand for Tesla cars in Q2 and Q3 hugely, because who is going to want to buy a car when your car cannot drive itself, right? Who's going to want to buy any other car when you have Tesla, a car who can drive itself, not just on highway, not just on very specific cities, but practically everywhere? Right? It's just kind of like 130 years ago. Who's going to still want to buy a horse now that the cars are available, right? Much less maintenance, right? When it's not a horse. So for these reasons, the third myth that the Tesla demand is going to get softer and softer is also busted. So thank you for coming and watching this channel today. Please like and subscribe and help me make more useful content. I really need your help. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.